Chapter 29. The Bones of the Earth. The portal transition was clean. A single blink, a shift in pressure, a momentary sense of weightlessness. And then the boat slid forward into a vast enclosed chamber. The first thing they noticed was the silence. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of a deeper, older quiet. The kind that settles in cathedrals, caverns, and the spaces between heartbeats. The second thing was the light. It came from nowhere and everywhere at once. A soft mineral glow rising from the stone itself. No torches, no lamps. The limestone walls seemed to breathe illumination, as though the chamber were lit by the memory of sunlight trapped in the rock. And then the third thing revealed itself. They floated on a long, narrow strip of impossibly still water. A subterranean canal, carved with astonishing precision. The surface was so smooth it reflected the ceiling, like polished obsidian. The channel ran straight ahead for at least 100 meters, disappearing into a haze. A halo, in fact, of pale golden light. Running along the left-hand side was a stone quay, raised just above water level. It was wide enough for 2 men to walk abreast, its edge cut with geometric exactness. No tool marks, no erosion, just clean, ancient lines. The quay wasn't rough-hewn like the stone forest outside. It was finished, almost architectural. The work of hands or minds that understood both geology and geometry at a level humans never had. Low pillars rose at intervals along its length, each one carved with faint harmonic grooves that seemed to vibrate in sympathy with the hum still echoing in their bones. Above them, the chamber arched high, far higher than any natural cavern should. The stone was ribbed with long, sweeping striations, like the inside of a colossal shell. The patterns converged toward the far end of the canal, drawing the eye forward. The air was cool, dry, and faintly metallic. Every breath felt easier, as if the chamber was subtly adjusting itself to their presence. Tomaz whispered, awestruck, "This isn't a cave. It's a resonance chamber, a tuning hall." Dan didn't answer. He was staring at the quay, where the stone nearest them had begun to glow with a soft, pulsing light. The same rhythm as the hum they'd felt outside. Dan Rye dipped his paddle once, guiding boat 1 toward the quay. "Right then," the major murmured. "Let's see what kind of welcome map this place rolls out." With the tough RSM taking point, the platoon walked in single file along the quay toward the haze of pale golden light. Tomaz walked directly behind the major, now and again running his fingers across the limestone surfaces, muttering to himself as the stone vibrated and lit in response to his touch. He followed the major through the halo of light and almost walked straight into his back. Dan had stopped abruptly and was staring around him with a look of total awe. Tomaz followed his gaze and drew a sharp breath. They were in a subterranean vault beneath the stone forest, but this was no simple room. It was a geological memory palace, carved into the bedrock long before the collector ever found it. The scientist in Tomaz overcame his awe and began mentally cataloging what he was seeing. A natural cavern whose walls contained crystalline veins that appeared to store vibrational data. Prototype portal rings. Imperfect, unstable, humming with dormant energy. Resonance maps etched into stone tablets. Harmonic keys. Tuning stones that activated specific sequences. A flicker of movement on an unusually flat section of wall caught his eye. He stepped closer. As he instinctively pressed his fingers to the stone, images flickered into life and faded almost immediately. The Library of Alexandria. Floating scrolls of light. A flash of Atlantis. Submerged pillars, blue radiance, pressure in his ears. A glimpse of Uluru, red dust spiraling upward. A deep bass note. A moment of Nazca. Glowing lines like circuitry. A bird's eye view. He stepped back abruptly as realization dawned. These were not messages. They were resonant fingerprints, the stone forest replaying what it had heard. And with that realization came another. Within seconds of passing through the halo of golden light, Tomaz was already attuned to the lattice, his neural patterns resonating with the portal harmonics. The node had accepted him, treating him as a receiver. He felt absurdly like a priest, an acolyte to technology so far advanced, it seemed like pure magic. With the Gurkha major shadowing him, Tomaz moved deeper into the chamber. Here, a circle of stone pillars stood engraved with complex hieroglyphics that entwined Egyptian symbols with Sanskrit and traditional Chinese characters. Some deep part of him knew, without knowing how, that the pillars were the Earth's bones, the memory of tectonic pressure and the geometry of endurance, and that the Earth itself had been listening for millennia. He glanced back past the major toward the entrance, just in time to see an unmistakable figure striding past the mixed group of Gurkhas and civilians. The collector had arrived. Archon Venar stepped fully into the chamber, and the vault reacted. Not violently and not dramatically, but unmistakably. The hum deepened by half a tone, a subtle shift, like a choir adjusting to the arrival of its conductor. The crystalline veins in the walls brightened, threads of pale light racing outward in branching patterns, as though the chamber were acknowledging him or warning him. Dan felt the hairs rise on the back of his neck. Tomaz felt something else entirely, a harmonic interference, a faint dissonance in the resonance patterns now flowing through his mind. The node had accepted him instantly. It did not seem quite so eager to accept the collector. Unusually for him, the collector wore a smile as he strode toward Tomaz and the major. "A successful mission indeed," he said. "My sincere thanks to you and your men, Major." Dan glanced at Tomaz. "I think it's more to do with him than any of us," he said. "This place has been lighting up more and more as Tomaz has walked through it." He frowned. "I still don't understand why you couldn't access this as easily as you did the others. Excepting the moon, of course." "Because, frankly speaking, I'm not human enough," the collector replied, "and certainly not what you would call a team player." He let the words hang for a moment, then swept his gaze around the chamber. This place was under a temporal lock covering the whole of the stone forest. Ironically, the signature of that lock was exactly what your own scientists detected the reason for your original expedition here. The node is sensitive to, for want of a better word, humanity, both at the individual and group level. He gestured behind him where Cass was weaving through the Gurkhas toward them. "We 22nd century humans are a bit too integrated with technology for the original designer's liking. And for a long time, there was only one of us, me. I've been here for over 100 years of subjective time, and this node has remained locked to me until today." Cass arrived beside him, eyes bright with excitement. "The node appears to be fully active and keyed to one of the expedition." Tomaz felt the weight of every eye in the chamber shift to him. A strange warmth pulsed through the stone beneath his feet, as if the node itself were acknowledging the statement. "So now," Cass said, "we just have to resolve our issues in space, access and enable the moon node, and the whole lattice will be running as it's supposed to again." "Exactly," the collector said. But there was something else in his tone, a note of anticipation, or perhaps unease. That made Dan glance sharply at him. The node was active. The lattice was stirring. And for the first time, the collector was no longer the one holding the key. The collector turned to the Gurkha major. "It looks like your work is done here, Major. And a fine job you've done, too." The major nodded crisply. "The portal is still open, back on the key. You can transit directly to Trongsa Song with us if you like, and then I can portal you back to the base. Unless, of course," he almost broke into another smile, "you'd like to go back the same way you came." The major's mouth twitched. "Grateful for the lift, sir." He turned to his RSM. "Get the lads ready to go, will you, Rye?" The RSM saluted briskly and headed off, almost colliding with the chief scientist, who was hurrying toward the group. His usual urbane composure had vanished. In fact, Dan thought, he looked positively flustered. "What is it, Lionel?" the collector asked. "You need to get back to the Dudsong right now," the chief scientist said. "There's no other way to say this. There's something wrong with the moon." "Wrong?" Cass said. "What kind of wrong?" "Well," Lionel said, "I've seen a supermoon more than once, and I've seen a blood moon as well, but this is an order of magnitude more strange. I think it's best you all see it for yourselves." The collector glanced around the small group, then over to where the Gurkhas and their proto-Gurkhas were forming up by the entrance to the hall. He nodded in that direction. "Gentlemen," they headed off. Dan realized someone was missing. The Slovenian had stayed behind, one hand resting on a stone column, ripples of light running up and down the surface, and, it seemed, up and down Tomaz as well. "Tomaz," he said. The Slovenian seemed to shake himself out of a trance. His eyes locked onto the Major's. "I'll catch you up, Dan." The Major turned to join the group and noticed that the collector was studying the Slovenian, an unreadable expression in his pale eyes. Then the collector turned and disappeared after the rest of the group into the golden haze at the entrance.